All right, guys, we got a big one. I think you've probably seen the title of this episode already. We got Bruce Pearl on, and this is we're recording this after the interview, so we're very excited that adrenaline's still running. It's a great interview. I don't want to ruin it by getting into too many of the actual topics of what he said, but keep an ear out for some stuff about summer basketball, international basketball, some good stuff about how he's going to change up ideas of the lineup. We tried to stick to he's going to be talking to a lot of radio guys and national TV guys and things, talking about the 2022-2023 season. But for us, this is a huge deal just from our entire lives as Auburn basketball fans to have the head coach on, not just have the head coach on, but the best one ever. We wore our suit in honor of having the head coach on, along we did the exact same thing with Sonny Smith, and now we're doing it with Bruce Pearl. And if we get Steven and Wes on again, we'll wear the suits again. And we're just excited to have them on. And so we tried to stick to more career-oriented questions, more things over the years. I mean, we even get some old school players mentioned from his early days. So we tried to stick to that kind of stuff so that we can give you something unique that you're not going to get from any of these radio guys and stuff. Things that only Auburn fans are really going to be interested on. That's it's just a big deal to have on for us.
We really tried to honestly. I think if you look at how the interview went, we really just questions we always wanted to ask. There's a few that I asked that I've been curious about, whether it's about his system or some of his influences in coaching, the recruiting and NIL stuff. But he gave us some good insight on what that's like from his perspective. We
even asked the cringe questions. We asked the questions that we ask of all the assistants and everything, and I have to get my answers. And I think once you hear some of the questions, you'll be like, oh, he asked them that one. Well, I asked them that one. So you got to pay attention to it.
Honestly, probably the best lightning round we've ever had.
Nice. Yeah, we'll probably clip that out too. You'll see it on our social media. Man, it's just great to have him on. We started this podcast before the season last year, knowing it was going to be a special season, and we've got to interview so many amazing people, like we mentioned, Sonny Smith and Steven Pearl, Wes Flanagan, Casey Harrell, several former players. I'm probably missing some people right now. We got to interview some interesting people like Lee Miller in the last podcast or two. If you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to that. It's just so cool that after this year, this has happened. I think we've all been so appreciative of what last year's team did, and kind of bottled this enthusiasm that we always knew was there. Part of the reason we did the podcast, not just because we knew that team was going to be great going into the year, because we felt like this basketball program deserved more attention, deserved more sole focus. There's a lot of media out there and things that cover all of Auburn, which we love all of Auburn. Bruce always is pushing the everything school, which you see Kentucky over there battling between their head football coach and basketball coach for attention. Bruce, on the other hand, is talking about how we're an everything school. But we really love the basketball program specifically, and we really think that there's enough fans out there, enough people that care. And after seeing how many people have listened to our SEC preview in the last day or two, or the season preview over the last day or two, people are still into it. People are anticipating the season like no other. And it's so great. We had summer basketball, and now we're coming up on another season with a talented team. This year, we get to talk to Coach Pearl beforehand. It's just, we're going to keep this thing rolling, and we hope you enjoy the interview.
Yeah, no, the only thing I would add before we get to the interview is just, if you're new to this, if you get past this interview, or if it gets sent to you, we're just a fan podcast with two Auburn alums that just like talking about basketball games afterwards, and we just started recording them last year. So, we plan to try to have an episode out the night of, after every game. That's kind of the goal. It may not happen every single game, but so if you're looking for some people to just listen to and process the season goes so fast with games every 3 or 4 days. That's kind of our niche, and we hope you'll ride along with us. There'll be a couple other guys rotating in this year for some different perspectives, and we have jobs and lives, so maybe we won't be on every single episode, but it's been awesome, and really this interview was great timing to have before the season starts, and it also you can hear Jackson Hart. It's kind of culminated this last year, so really appreciate people who have listened, and people we've met who just randomly listen to the podcast, which is just super cool. So we're rambling. We're still on the post interview.
We're just the drilling's running, but we hope in the future that this kind of kicks off maybe some newer people to the podcast this year, and we hope we make you part of I hope this podcast is part of your morning commute, after a big post game and you want to talk more, and maybe your office doesn't have a bunch of Auburn fans to talk about basketball with. Well, we'll be your friends to talk about Auburn basketball with. Feel free to hit us up on Instagram and Twitter and YouTube if any questions you have or topics you want to talk about. I hope, we all kind of get to process the season together again this next season. So, all right, guys, War Eagle, enjoy the interview. All right, guys, we did it. We have checked off the bucket list. Ladies and gentlemen, we got them. Your reigning SEC champion, head coach of the Auburn men's basketball team, Bruce Pearl, is on the podcast. Welcome, Coach.
Gentlemen, great to be with you today. How's everybody?
Doing good. We broke out the suits for you. We break out the suits for the head coaches, for Coach Bruce Pearl. And
yeah, but we don't coach in suits anymore.
Oh, so, we miss it. We miss the sweaty suits, Bruce. Well, we'll get into the questions here because we know your time's limited. But we had a great time watching the Israel games this summer. We had a great time having basketball in the summertime with how anticipated all the fans are for this coming season. It seems to have made a big wave in our fan base, a big wave nationally. We interviewed Lee Miller, the sports rabbi, just out of excitement to hear about the organization. I think at SEC Media Days they were talking about it. How do you see the future of these international tournaments and just summer basketball in general?
Yeah, well, that's a great place to start. But again, Matt, Jackson, I'm very pleased to be with you guys. So two things. One, the foreign trip's been around for a long time. Once every 4 years, the NCAA allows college teams to take these foreign tours, and I've done it my entire career. I mean, from the time I was 22 years old as an assistant at Stanford and went to Japan that year, which was incredible. And then 4 years later, I'm at Iowa, and we went to China before the fall at Tiananmen Square when it was communist China. We went to Seoul, South Korea, and Hong Kong, all on the same trip. I mean, and it just continued to go from there, like literally every 4 years. The idea about going to Israel, everybody wants to go to Israel at some point in their life. It's kind of a bucket list. Anybody goes to church or temple or reads the Bible, but they all say, but I'm going to wait for it to quiet down a little bit. I want to go, but I'm not going to go right now because, there's a little bit of if you wait for it to quiet down, you're never going to go. And then what you realize when you get over there, it's very, very safe. And it's obviously, a beautiful, beautiful place. Jerusalem looks exactly like you think it's still supposed to look like in the Bible. And our kids, we're here at Auburn. We have Bible study here at Auburn. We pray before our meals. And our kids have some knowledge of the scripture. And it was an amazing history lesson for them. And it was an amazing experience in their Judeo-Christian roots. And of course, me being Jewish, I'm of course trying to tie things together that we have in common for all the religions, dating back to Abraham. And so anyways, fabulous trip. I do believe that August, you're going to start seeing some legislation coming out of the NCAA. Wouldn't surprise me if someday we start playing a little bit of a like spring football type thing in August, where they're going to give us a week or two every year to play a couple of games, whether it's even here in the United States or overseas. And I think that it would be a wonderful thing.
Love to hear. We really enjoyed it this summer.
Yeah. Coach, as long as I've been hearing you talk in press conferences, I've heard you reference Dr. Tom Davis. Could you give Auburn fans just a little bit of an idea of what parts of your coaching philosophy are most deeply rooted with your time spent with him?
Man, that's such a great opportunity. And you're right. Our fans should know who Dr. Tom Davis is. They have got such a love for Auburn basketball and for the work that we've done, and we feel that love. We feel a responsibility to go to work every day to thank our fans for giving us this incredible opportunity to be their coach. Tom Davis taught me almost everything I knew about coaching, period. So he should be important. And you've given me a really good idea with our sports information folks to try to let my fans know who he is and what he did. So when I went to Boston College, I walked on and got cut from the basketball team, but then became a manager and worked for 4 years for Tom Davis, to the point where when Patrick Ewing came on as an official visit, I was hosting him. I was so involved in Boston College basketball in the early Big East days, that when I was a senior, my senior year at BC, Tom Davis took the Stanford job out in California, and I was the only staff member on the plane with him to Stanford. It was he and I sitting in first class. I'm 21 years old. I mean, he had one of his assistants that was trying to get the job, and another couple that were doing something else. And anyways, I tell students that story. I said, make yourself important in any organization that you're in. And I learned our system of basketball, both in how we inbound the ball, attack pressure, fast break, and the foundation of our offense, about 75% of what he taught me. Defensively, we've done things a little differently, but still it's a 94-foot full court pressure defense. And the last piece of advice Tom Davis gave me before I became head coach was this. He said two things. I would recommend that you teach what you know. Take this system and make it your own, but take it. Because what happens is a lot of time with coaches, you like this and you like that, and I'll do a little bit of Bill Self, I'll do a little Roy Williams, I'll do a little Coach K, you put it all together and none of it works. And so this is a system of basketball, and that was great advice. The second piece of advice is you be you. Don't try to be me. Be your own personality. That way, at least it's authentic. It doesn't make it right, but it makes it real. And therefore, I don't have to try to be something that I'm not, because he was Dr. Tom. He was incredibly brilliant, which I'm not. He had a great basketball mind, which I don't. He was quiet at times, which I've never been, And so, Dr. Tom Davis, I would love to bring him to Auburn someday and let our fans meet him. And that might be your question, may make me do that this year.
Awesome. And that's a great segue to my next one. Defensively, I remember watching your early teams at Tennessee, full court press, this kind of in your face. You obviously still emphasize a lot of that, but can you talk about how your defensive philosophy has changed a little bit with rule changes, and the sport has changed a lot in the last 10 or 20 years? What are you doing differently now than you were when you were first cutting your teeth?
Yeah, it's all about the rule changes, and it's all about adjusting to the rules. So they've got this stupid thing called a cone. It's like Dirty Dancing. This is my space. This is your space. You don't get into my space. And so basically they've legislated and ruled a trap out of the game of basketball. If you can't put two bodies on one offensive body and hem him in, it's no point in even trying to double team the ball and trap it. Because if you do it aggressively and physically, it's going to be a foul by the rule. So therefore, that's taken out the Nolan Richardson, full court, Tom Davis, Rick Pitino even trapping defenses. So we still guard for 94 feet, but we don't double the ball nearly as much and try to make plays out of the traps in different positions on the floor.
Tennessee and Auburn early on, a lot of people talked about your guard-heavy play, a lot of three-pointers, a lot of fast breaks, a lot of hard defense leading the offense. And now we've seen the last couple of years, even 2019-20 with Austin Wiley, this last year with Jabari and Walker Kessler, this more power forward, center-heavy kind of offense and defense play. How has that changed for you? And do you recruit to your system of these fast guards that they're playing, shooting the threes, or do you go the other way and try to get these guys to fit into your system?
It's a great question. Also, look, we've gotten better frontline players because our program has been successful. And let's face it, Austin Wiley was a legacy child. Anytime you see Vicky or Aubrey Wiley, thank them, because Austin Wiley coming to Auburn was what got this whole thing started. And then Jabari and Walker, JT Thor, Chumo Kiki, all those guys are from Atlanta. And, so, Stretch was from Atlanta. Dylan Carwell was from Atlanta, or, the Savannah area. So we've been blessed with some regionally, Jalen Williams, from Nehunta in Georgia. So as we've gotten better, we've been able to recruit better players. That's all there's to it. I don't really recruit to our system. I recruit to our culture. And that's would take me too long to go into that, but I think you know what I mean. What kind of kids we bring in, what kind of teammates they want to be, how hard they're willing to work. And I will find a way to adjust my system to their talents, not I'm going to make them adjust to my system.
I almost switched it up for Matt a little bit here. You're talking about the culture. You've had a lot of big personalities on these teams over the year. This year we have KD and Cardwell are two of the biggest personalities you've ever had. So who would be in your mind, your all personality team, your best personalities that are the most out there kind of interesting people?
Well, I mean, obviously, KD and Dylan are both very passionate, very emotional, and in some ways, especially KD, wears it on his face. He doesn't wear it on his sleeve; he just wears it on his face, right? And so, but so does his coach, right? So you definitely hit on two of the top five for sure.
Anybody else that comes straight to your mind? One guy I think about is Malik Dunbar. He had such a great personality, the singing, he was also great.
Yeah, I would say that. And those guys they're great in the locker room. They keep it light and they keep it lively. Malik would be a great one. Chris Moore right now is and Stretch Babatunde in their own ways are great locker room guys, great teammates. But you're right, Malik was very, very important to us because he had that again, same thing. He had that passion, and he could just he could all he had to do was grin at you, and that it made you smile.
I'll do a throwback one. Simeon Bowers.
Yeah, I was trying not to go there.
Oh, sorry.
Simeon was. I played him at the 5 and the 6, and people say, "What do you mean you played him at the 6? That there are only 5 guys on the floor." Well, he played the 5, which was center, and then when I got really shorthanded at point guard for about 2 weeks there late in his career, I actually played him at the 1, but I could not bring myself to call him a point guard or the 1, so I just created the 6.
Oh, I love that. We love to go back at some of these older players, but another big thing, you shoot a lot of threes at Tennessee and at Auburn, especially with Bryce Brown and Jared Harper when you have the specialists doing that. How do you have a lot of your offenses encouraging these guys, always giving them the green light, saying I hear several times that you're always encouraging them. How about a night where people are shooting a little badly, maybe shooting you out of the game? Do you communicate to them at all? Is there like a self-awareness from the player standpoint? How do you kind of communicate that?
That could be one of our Achilles heels this year is and with the exception really of Jabari, we did not shoot a great percentage last year. And that's an issue. So we work really hard at it. Our offense is based on spacing and spread and taking advantage of the 3-point line. And that's been a challenge for us. So on nights when we don't shoot it very well, we hope we don't shoot ourselves out of a game. But we better make up for it with our defense and some other aspects of our play.
Is there like a certain time of the game or anything that you're saying we need to go get those hard twos? The threes aren't going down. Are you communicating that? Like, how do you keep from killing the confidence from these guys? That's
well, I mean, you want high percentage shots. Like we've got guys inside that can score. We'll probably have a stronger post up game this year than we've had in the past. And so, like Hayden Fry said when he was a great football coach at Iowa, you got to scratch where it itches. So what are you good at? Let's go to what we're good at. And the problem with the missing too many 3 balls is long shots lead to long rebounds, lead to transition. So not only is it a miss, but it's also a transition opportunity for the opponent.
We had our preseason episode this weekend, and we spent about a third of the episode gushing about the positional versatility and the depth on this team. I've heard you talk about just that should be our biggest strength this year. I say our, like I'm on the team.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
It is.
So do you think we will see a little bit more unique rotations, starting lineups, closing groups early in the year because of that? Or are you guys as a staff in a pretty good place of knowing kind of where everybody is right now?
I don't think we know where everybody's going to be because there hasn't been much separation. That means our starters aren't good enough, but it means our backups are better than anybody else in the league.
Yep.
And so, there'll be a lot of parity. I can tell you that your most experienced guys, your best free throw shooters will be out there at the end of games. But I really couldn't tell you right now who's going to start. And we're trying to figure out who our roles are going to be. And they're going to have to continue to do that on a game by game basis.
Good problem to have.
you tend to stick to your starters. We've noticed over the years. You don't like to pull people in and out too often. I don't know if that's part of like a coaching philosophy or if that's just kind of happened as it goes. If you think you'll see more starting changes this year, just from an experimental standpoint.
Man, I don't know. Maybe early on, we may be looking more at combinations, like what combinations of players are playing best together, as opposed to individuals playing together. So we may look at what group of guards play best together, what group of inside players play best together, and try to mix and match accordingly.
This last year was really like a magical year for us. I think for you guys too. We knew going into this year that this was going to be a big one, or at least last year was. And it seems like you've done an amazing job of capturing and like bottling that energy. The whole Jungle City, Pearl City kind of thing. The wanting to build a basketball complex and getting the big boosters involved and everything. Now it seems like you pulled back a little bit and need to maybe adjust to NIL a little bit. What is it like in this new age of recruiting that, you've got these guys going to the NBA. That was a huge deal. Number 3 with Jabari, the traditional kind of recruiting pitches of, I can get you guys to the NBA. I can, here's this great facility, but it's changed so much in the last year or two. Like, is some of that diminished? Is how much, what's this new world?
Well, I think you've hit the nail on the head. There's other things. We used to recruit to number one being an Auburn man, and what that was all about, and the university, and the fact that we've graduated more players in 8 years than anybody else in the league, and the discipline it takes to be successful academically, come in and train. You can come here and win championships and go to the pros. Those things are all huge benchmarks. What's the culture of our locker room? Those things all matter, but now you must add in the every game sold out in the greatest environment in college basketball. Now you add in the NIL piece, and it's got to be a part of the equation. You add in the transfer portal, and that's part of the equation. So it's kind of like rule changes. You got to adjust to it. All my rosters have been pre-NIL built, and now this is going to move forward to a post-NIL looking roster, and for the future, and we're prepared, and our fan base and the market, I think is really good to be able to support our student athletes, and On to Victory is our collective at NIL, and I think they're in a really, really good place right now.
One interesting thing after this big season was that you seem to have, Ray, that we need a basketball complex. So that was like one of your go-to, like, all right, now that I had this enthusiasm and motivation from the crowd, this is what I'm going to ask for, is this basketball facility. It's something we need. Is there anything else out there, like, money's not an option, everyone's 100 out of 100 excited? Are there things out there that if we go another year as amazing as last year, you're right, that this might be a good idea to have?
Well, we got to get NIL right at the university for sure, and we're an everything school, and so I think it's important that we are across the board putting each sport, each school in position to be nationally competitive in everything that we do. And so, part of the basketball facility really has a lot to do with volleyball, women's basketball, gymnastics, and men's basketball. So right now in Neville Arena, and it's always a great time to thank Bill and Connie Neville for their incredible generosity and the desire to put their family's name on our building. Volleyball, women's basketball, and men's basketball share 2 courts on a regular basis. There's only an intercollegiate athletic practice window between 2:30 and say 5:30. It's hard to get 3 teams on 2 courts in that window. So some teams have got to practice in the evening or in the morning. I can only get the main floor maybe 33% of the time because volleyball's playing. Women get it half the time. I get it half the time. It's a real facilities challenge. So having another court or having another basketball practice facility would really help all the sports. Women's basketball would now have their own complex. Volleyball would not have to share a court with anybody, or and then we'd have our own as well. Staffs have grown, and I've got I have half of my staff that doesn't have an office space. They don't have a desk. They don't have a chair. They're down there in the locker room or down there in they're in a chair out in the lobby. So we're tight on space, and that would be the next thing would be to have a basketball practice facility.
Well, Coach, you've checked off so many items off of like Jackson and I are lifelong Auburn fans. So we've checked a lot of stuff off our college basketball bucket list in the last 8 years. And I think that's awesome. You and your staff deserve a lot of credit for that. Besides winning a national title, you've signed this, extension contract, which everybody's really excited about. What are the things on the horizon that you and your staff are thinking about? Is it just the consistency of being in the top of the league? What is it that drives you guys? And are there any other goals out there that you're looking at?
Man, our goals are the same in the sense that, look, if you're good enough to win our league, you're good enough to win a national championship, and that's the position we want to be in. We want to be good enough to win our league, and it's easier to get it going than it is to keep it going. And so the thing I'm proud of the most is, in the last 5 years of Auburn basketball, we've got 3 firsts, a second, and COVID, and so that's pretty good. 3 ones, a 2, and COVID. Now, can we keep that going? To me, that's what making history is all about, and so that's what our goals are. Keep doing things in the community, keep serving the community to whom much is given, much is expected. Keep graduating our kids. Just keep doing the things that God might bless every day, and if we get blessing, great. If we don't get any blessing, let's just keep doing them anyways because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that perspective. So last question from me, and then Jackson's got a few lightning round ones as we always wrap up. You've been at Auburn. It's hard to believe this is year 9. Growing up as Auburn people in Auburn families, it's always really hard to explain what that is to friends and other people who are outside of it. You're kind of in the family now, obviously. You've been in it a long time. You've seen some of the ups and downs and all that goes around with it. How do you explain that? If you have a coaching friend from the West Coast or the Northeast and they ask, you seem really happy at Auburn, what is it? How do you explain that to somebody?
I think you'd ask them to first read the Auburn Creed because it still exists, and then that's the way people try to live. I think that we live in a community here in Auburn, Alabama, that almost everybody really likes it. They like it here. Their families like it here. The schools are good. It's a safe place. It's a Christian community that is very religiously tolerant. It's diverse. People are happy here, generally speaking. It's a great community. And so therefore, it takes a village. You want to be surrounded by really good people. Iron sharpens iron. And so you are a product of your environment in very well. And this is a great environment. It starts with our students and our faculty and our leadership. And I wish there were more places in this country that love their God, love their country, love their neighbor, and is grateful for the opportunities. We've got issues, we've got challenges, but we still live in the greatest country in the world, and we celebrate that and we take advantage of that every single day at Auburn. So therefore, people can come into this environment and feel it themselves. It's hard in recruiting in a period of 48 hours. This place is different. It's different, and it's hard to explain. But it's easy to live.
All right, Coach, are you ready for the lightning round? You locked in? You ready to go?
I'm a tough lightning round guy because I'm really bad on short words, short answers. But let's go ahead.
All right. We already know the answer, I'm sure, here, but I've asked this to every one of your assistants and former players, current players. Heat check timeouts, pro or against?
Like when somebody's getting it going, do I want to call heat check timeout?
Yeah. How do you feel about heat check timeout?
Yeah, I think it's good. I think you got to slow it down, throw the rhythm off. Yes, I'm in favor of heat check timeout.
All right. Who's the team you most want to get a home-and-home series with from out of conference?
Probably Duke.
Duke. All right. All right. If you had the chance to only sweep one of these teams, who do you want to sweep the most? Tennessee or Alabama?
Both.
Both? Okay. All right. The Olympics come calling. They say you can have the head coach of either one of these. They're going to going to the Olympics. Israel or USA?
Oh, USA all day, every day.
All right. More stressful, coaching Stephen Pearl or watching Stephen Pearl coach?
Ooh, watching him coach. Yeah, the one game that I was took my suspension, that was that was stressful, because it's my son out there. And so, but he did amazing. I mean, he did better than I could do.
Well, we've had him on previously along with Wes Flanagan. They come on again, even though it was one game, but we were in the suits. So they get the suit treatment. But that's the lightning round, Coach. We really appreciate you coming on. It's been great. This has been a bucket list for us. It's been an amazing run for us. Honestly, it's been a huge uplift for our own lives in general that we get to watch this team play and be successful at Auburn basketball, especially last year when things were tough with COVID and different things. Man, that was great. So thank you for being at Auburn. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Well, Matt Jackson, thanks for having me, and I hope you feel the same way after this year.
War Eagle, Coach.
War Eagle. Thank you.